I'm a talkative person. Because I'm an SE dom, it's like my only world is the physical. My words are the only means of me getting out my meaning and intention. We'll see if I eat those words.
Should be entertaining others all the time.
This is exactly where I wanted to go with this. I would not deign to fist bump on a podcast where people can hear me. You guys ready to go?
Yeah, keen.
Hello everyone and welcome to a new episode of the Literally No Subtext podcast with Kristen. I am she and I am here with a very special guest. She is someone who is very close to my heart. She is a esteemed INFJ friend. I've got only a few of those. And someone that I have known for 18 years. This is my dear friend, Rebecca. Rebecca, hello.
Hello.
How are you today?
I'm pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, I'm nervous because I don't know what's coming up, but that's fine.
I asked Rebecca at the beginning, I was like, how nervous do you feel about the fact that you have no control
Terrified.
over what's...
Absolutely terrified.
Yeah, I feel like INFJs need to have things pre-prepared, whereas, you know,
Yeah.
being an SC dom, I absolutely don't.
Yeah, I don't agree with that, but yeah. Can't relate.
So today we're going to be diving into being an INFJ, what that looks like. Rebecca's the first INFJ that I have on the podcast, so I'm excited.
Is it because we're the rarest type?
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm excited because I have things that I don't understand about INFJs that I'd like to, I guess, hash out a little bit with you. Because I have a series on my channel called 16 Personalities Through the Eyes of whichever type. And I haven't released a 16 Personalities Through the Eyes of the INFJ. And a lot of my INFJ followers have pointed that out to me. And
Of course they have.
yes, yes. But the reason why I'm not doing it is because I'm terrified. And I feel like there are so many things I don't understand about INFJs. There's so much going on underneath the surface that I'm just terrified of like getting it wrong, I guess. But I feel like for INFJs, there's like, and this is, I'm going to throw this over to you in a second. There's like perpetually something deeper going on. There's perpetually some deeper why happening. There's perpetually 1,000 different other perspectives or this tapestry of interwoven ideas that's existing in the abstract over the tiniest bit of sense data. And I just don't understand it.
I think even we don't understand it. It's the problem. I'm talking like we collective, like I'm the spokesperson for an INFJ. I think even I sometimes, will get very deep about something in my own head and they go, why am I like this? You know, why do I fixate on stuff like that? So
when you say fixate on stuff, what does that look like? Like, does any kind of example come to mind?
If I had a thought that someone thought about me in a certain way, I would fixate on that quite excessively, and then any kind of facial expression or gesture, I'd be like, does that mean because they think XYZ about me? When it probably doesn't, and I've just, use those patterns and sense data to make myself think that.
Yeah. So what if you were like, oh, this person perceives me this way?
Yeah.
Or this person thinks this about me. And then what if that person then came out and said, oh, I really love you. You're fantastic. Like, and so you have that piece of sense data of them telling you that they love you.
Yeah.
Would you still then maybe doubt it or not believe it? Because
I think it would depend on it would depend on how genuine the person was.
Yeah, and your context.
And then also what kind of judgments I had made on them. So if I had, put together, okay, they're genuine, then I would believe that. It would depend on the person, I really think.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, I also think that I'm often not wrong. So...
Shocking for an NI dom.
Yeah. I often, trust my judgment, so I don't... Yeah, it would depend.
Yeah. What is it that makes you reach a certain judgment, if you were to quantify that?
On a person?
Yeah, like what helps you reach your judgments? Is it just because I guess in the MBTI community, NI is kind of described as just this intuition, this feeling of knowing, like this vision that's just been dropped on you from the heavens and you just believe it so truly. And maybe you don't have any data points for it, but it's there.
before you said that, I was like, it's just a feeling.
Yeah. It's just a feeling.
Yeah.
And yet you're like, but I'm right.
Yeah, I'm not often wrong, I think, when sounds bad. I feel like that when I meet someone, I have a really I think that I can quickly see through who they are. And I don't know, there's probably no data to it. It's simply because I've picked up on a vibe, I think. And I'm not going to say I'm always right, but most of the time I am. So if I think someone is lying, typically they have been lying.
Wow.
Yeah. Sorry, that was my phone.
Also, I should flag that we are currently in a toy room, and as we were preparing for the podcast, one of the toys went off. So if you hear a creepy clown start to sing,
it's usually like a puzzle piece up there that makes noises. So if you hear a helicopter, it's not because there's a helicopter. It's like it's a toy.
Yeah. Rebecca has a gorgeous little daughter, and we are in her playroom.
Who are eager to type.
Yeah, Rebecca's like, come over and type her for me. I'm like, she's
know.
won.
I need to know. Actually, on that, my psychologist, I saw her yesterday, and I was talking about like, because she just started daycare, and I was like, oh my gosh, so she's been crying when I drop her off. Like, I don't know what kind of attachment that is. Does that mean that she's insecure? And she's like, Rebecca, you don't have to diagnose. Stop trying to go so deep into what is happening. She's like, she's probably just crying because you've left her.
Yeah.
And I was like, but what about? She's like, no.
Yeah.
It's just that. And
you're like, but that could lead to this attachment in the future.
Yeah, it's terrible. So that is probably another great aspect of INFJ.
So on that, I can't even fathom if that's how you feel about like just even one little piece of sense data, which is not little. There's obviously strings attached to it. Like there's a lot going on there. But like even sense data, like when you meet someone at a party and you have this idea of like who they are or some intuition. And I imagine that must be happening for you like all the time in your life, like every day with lots of different things. Yeah. How do you then rein that in? Or I'm not saying you should rein it in the sense that like it's you, it's beautiful, like it's a gift that you have that intuition. That's fantastic. But how do you make sure that you're approaching that in like a healthy way and not letting that world of ideals replace what's happening in front of you?
Yeah. I think I'm better at it now than I used to be. I think it is, like you said, it is intuition and the feeling, but I also was just thinking that it is also little bits of sense data. I'm going to continue using that word.
Rebecca keeps doing the quotation marks, but she says sense data. Like, yeah, okay, this thing exists if you say it exists.
Sense data. Weirdly picking up on small things, even if like someone, like the tiniest of facial expressions. I know that sounds weird, but
like, micro expressions.
Yeah, so I had a friend once, not a friend. He was a boxing trainer that I no longer to speak to. Anyway, he had his own issues. Anyway, I like one time he was like sitting there and no one else picked up that he was upset, but to me it was really obvious and I can't express why I knew that. But I was just like, oh, he's upset. He's like, how do you always know when something's wrong with me? And I'm like, I don't know. I actually don't know what it is. I don't know if it's picking up on like the micro facial expressions that like, yeah, it's weird.
So you wouldn't be able to tell me any of the sense data points that were telling you that?
I mean, the first one is obviously he was sitting on the floor with his like knees up and like, but that probably to anyone would have been probably normal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know. Boxing trainer, like stretching or something, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, just, what else?
You just felt it.
I just felt it, you know, deep in my loins. No, I can't even express what it is.
It's probably your FE playing in there as well, the fact that you're using, I guess, emotional cues of people around you, like you're switched on to those all the time, probably.
Yeah, it's exhausting.
Gosh, I can't even imagine.
I was thinking about this. So I'm obviously married to an ISTP.
Oh yes, that's an interesting piece of information.
An interesting time.
We'll get to that later.
Yeah, so when he's upset, I obviously feel upset. But I realise that when it's the other way round, it's just not, it just doesn't happen. Like
shocking.
He feel like, not the same. Not the same at all.
No.
Maybe feel like a little bit upset, but my mood is totally affected if he's upset.
Interesting. So today, basically, I mean, I was trying to get into what we were going to do in the podcast. Then classically, I launched into like the first few questions. Today in the podcast, we're basically looking at the INFJ personality type. I, as an ESFP, am going to ask Rebecca questions about her life and how her cognitive functions affect life and our, I guess, relationship and like what we do and don't understand about each other.
Relationship?
I know, like our friendship. And maybe your relationship with your husband. Mm-hmm. We're going to go into self-development and growth a little bit, and we're going to touch a little bit on trauma. Trauma. And then I'm going to get to some of the questions that you guys asked in the comment section of my podcast YouTube channel, Literally No Subtext with Dear Kristen. Give it a subscribe if you haven't already. Okay, so I guess we should start with, and we didn't talk about this beforehand, but I think it would be an interesting thing to start with.
I love not knowing things,
Yeah, that's your favorite thing. I'm just improvising here. I'm comfortable doing it. I guess our friendship. Yeah. So ESFP, INFJ combination is one that I think it's not typically a combination that people would think is a naturally compatible one, though Myers-Briggs and compatibility is a whole other topic which I have talked into extensively. I basically believe that no particular two types are important. You know this, but that are no particular two types are more compatible than others. It's about how much work you put into the relationship at the end of the day, because you're always going to have issues, etc. But yeah, obviously I use SE as my first function. You use SE as your bottom function. But we've always had like a really good friendship, I would say.
Yeah, I would agree.
I've always felt really understood by you. And I don't even think... It was so strange because I remember when we got into our 20s, because we knew each other since we were in year 7, which is about year 12. Yeah. We're 12 years old. Yeah. And when we got into our 20s, I don't even feel like I shared my heart with you or like shared my story or whatever, but you just had empathy and like seemed to understand me. And anytime I actually did have the courage to actually share with you what I was going through, you never seemed surprised. You were just
Didn't I?
No, you were just like, yeah, tell me more. And I'm like, wow, like none of this is shocking her. And I just kind of wondered, is it because INFJ, like as an INFJ, you live in a reality where all things are possible, like for all people? I don't know, like, or did you have an intuition about me? Her eyes are growing big. She's like, I have no idea.
When you shared stuff like about your past?
Yeah. Or like issues I'd gone through, like the trauma, just felt understood by you.
I'm wondering if it's less of an INFJ thing and more to do with it being a teacher, and I guess that listening, it could be maybe a bit from column A, a bit from column B, but just not, I guess when someone's divulging something that's quite sensitive, I don't do this because maybe I know, but yeah, you're not gonna be like, oh my God, that's so shocking, because that doesn't make them feel validated. It just means that I guess you're just heightening what has happened to them rather than listening properly. I'm not sure if that is an INFJ. It could be a bit both.
I mean, I think for me, when I'm on the receiving end of a story that's something that I have not had experience with, someone sharing something that I've never had an experience with, I might be shocked. Like sometimes, in fact, often, even though I think I'm wise enough to the state of the world, I will hear a story or something that just reawakens me to how dark the world can be. And it shocks me every time. Sometimes I'll hear a sad story and I'm like, I can't believe that the world is actually like this. But I feel like with you, there's been this, and it's one of my favorite things about you. You are like one of the most resilient people that I know. And you've been through so much and you're just so resilient and you just have so much hope. And I've just wondered, like, is it because you've always existed, you've just existed in a state of intuitively knowing that people can be dark and evil, and like it doesn't ever surprise you how bad the world can get?
Maybe. I actually haven't even thought about this properly. Now that you're saying it, I'm like, why don't I react?
As I'm talking, I'm just realizing in your face that you've never thought about this.
No, really, INFJ, and I haven't thought about this stuff. I don't. Maybe because it's just like an intrinsic.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's such an intrinsic part to. It's just your mode of being that you. Yeah. But it's something that I notice as an ESFP who's like the opposite.
Yeah.
I rarely think about the state of the world. I don't have a good intuition about people or things. So when I hear things, I'm like, whoa, like I had no idea that that person was capable of this, or I had no idea that this person was going through this. I had no idea, but INFJs, literally,
Maybe.
not just you, they just never seem to be surprised. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, maybe you are onto something. I think this took me back to a memory that is so weird, and I will explain to you why this is probably why I don't seem shocked by things. I think even when I was younger, I had always a really particular sense of all the terrible things that they do happen in the world. So when I was younger, super weird, I think I was like 8, and for some reason I thought I could start like a charity when I was 8 years old that would help like starving kids in like third world countries or developing countries, whichever the terminology it is. Yeah, I was like, I can start a charity. And like, so I started to make like a presentation of all these like crying kids.
Oh.
But that was when I was 8 years old. Like, what kind of 8-year-old does that?
Yeah, you're like, this is my PowerPoint presentation that I'm going to
Yeah, I'm going to change the world.
Oh, I love that.
So maybe it is that. And maybe I've always just had a sense that I was even thinking just then with a group chat with 2 of our other friends that when they send stuff like, oh, the world is so messed up, I'm like, yeah, it is, but also I don't know, like I think I'm just more aware that bad things do happen. I don't know, god, that's actually a really hard one.
I'd be interested if you, I mean, I know you and you're going to ponder this more later.
I'm already pondering it now as we speak.
Yeah, you're going to ponder it a lot, but it's definitely something I've noticed with NI, like just any NTJ or NFJ, they're rarely surprised in some regard, especially the NI DOMs. It's like they've got this understanding of how things actually are and that things are never as they seem on the surface.
Yes.
And as an SE DOM, I'm like, things are as they seem on the surface. It's why this podcast is called Literally No Subtext. Like, things are as they seem on the surface, and I buy that, and that's how I look at the world, which is great. It has its virtues in a lot of ways.
I love this for you.
Yeah.
I can't relate, and I wish I could not think deeply about things sometimes. It's exhausting.
Well, each of these qualities each have their gifts. Like, I'm able to, just like entertain people, bring people out into the present moment and have fun. But when it comes to introspection, it took me years to actually get to a place where I actually started to do it. But you've always been aware of who you are, I think. Would you say that's true?
I would say that's true. I mean, yeah, I think I do. Like you said, being able to dig under the surface of what is actually happening. I think it's just like a go-to function, which obviously it is because it's my top function, right? And I think in a way, even though, no shade, in your video about the 16 personalities as teachers, and you said INFJ would just give up, even though people don't forget. Even though as a teacher, that was like the perception of what an INFJ would be like. I would say that it makes it teaching really easy with like young kids, because on the surface you can see, like one particular student I had, on the surface he was like crazy, like out of his seat, wild, and me, I was like, why are you like this?
Yeah.
I wasn't just like, oh, what a crazy kid. Obviously he's just so undisciplined. I was kind of like, why is he like this? And I kept pondering, and then I kept digging around. And then it turns out that his mum had been really unwell, and then his grandma had to come and stay. And so like the home life was so chaotic, and he just wasn't getting attention at home. So therefore he's going to get attention at school. I think it's stuff like that, not taking things for face value and digging deeper. Yeah. I call NI the why function, because there's always a why. There needs to be a why. There's literally everything. Always a why. If there's not a why, then you are... Bye-bye. Yeah. If there's not a why, then bye-bye. I love that. That's going to be a new slogan that I coin. But there is always a why, and you will find it. That's what I've learned. Yeah. I think I will die on the hill before I'll die on that hill. What's that? Is that the expression? Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. You will die on the hill of the why. Okay. So just to flag something that I guess I have struggled to understand about INFJs in my interactions with them is that I see
that they have made some kind of judgment, don't know where it's come from sometimes, and they get attached to that, and it's very hard to get them to change their mind.
Yes.
I can think of one person who, actually there's a few people who come to my mind in terms of INFJs in my life, and I love all my INFJ friends, necessary disclaimer, but a few of them, I guess, when they first met me, had this idea of who I was, and I was desperately trying to show them who I really was, but felt that they weren't understanding it. And because they had already put me in that box that they had labelled me as.
So weird that we, like, that's what happens as well, because aren't we meant to be really, like, people focused?
Yeah, but
so
you've got this entire, your own subjective, I guess, pattern that you are focused on 100% of the time. It must be really hard to detach from. So you are people focused. And this is the thing. These people were always beautiful and wonderful to me. So I'd be like, this isn't an exact example, but I'll give you a kind of example of the thing I'm talking about. Say I'm at a party with an INFJ and they're just like so sweet and lovely to me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we're bonding. This is fantastic. Maybe I share a bit of my heart, which for me is like, you know, I just, like if I have a good day, it's because I've lived 100% authentically. Like as long as I'm, you know, so if I share at a party a bit of my heart, it's a big deal. I do it quite often these days, let's be honest. But like in every interaction, it's some of my heart, really. And then they're so nice to me and I think, okay, we're bonding. And then later I find out that they actually think this about me, which is something so different. But on the surface, it's appeared that they...
So bad. It's so true. I do this so much with people. I could literally hate someone and then to their face I'm like, have a great day.
Oh, goodness. Yeah.
And I hate that about myself, but I do it.
Look, we can't control the thoughts that come into our minds. It's our actions that count. So if you're, you know, being nice to someone and saying have a great day, that's great. That's spreading charity, right? But I guess when I thought, it's not just have a nice day kind of stuff. It's like, we've connected at a party in like a 10 to 15 minute conversation.
You actually
I know, that's the thing. I think I've connected to the person and then to them. But I've talked about this with other FE users as well, including my friend Laith. If you guys are interested in listening to that podcast, he was on an episode. He's an ENFJ. And he was like, yeah, well, I, you know, I'm really friendly and wonderful and lovely to people. That doesn't mean I'm going to be their best friend. Like I might go away and never talk to them again. But it's not me being inauthentic, because in that moment, I really did, like the most important thing was to affirm them and be nice to them. So it's not in authenticity. It's not fakeness from like an FE Dom's perspective. That's them just loving. That's how they know how to be. That's how they want to be. But it's in such a detached way that it doesn't mean that they're making a long-term friendship with the person in their head. But then if I think I've bonded nicely with the person, I'm like, we shared something special. They have a part of my heart. And then I hear that they actually, you know, think this thing about me. And then I'm just like, well, I much rather would have preferred that you were just like cordial to me then, rather than being so invested in that conversation and like making me think we were connecting. Anyway, that might not be an INFJ thing, but I just, the question that comes from there is like this, I guess this vision or this idea that you have of something. Because one person in particular, months later, this person said to me, Kristen, wow, like I've really enjoyed getting to know you. I must admit, I thought this about you for a really long time, but I was wrong. And I was like, yeah, I've been trying to show you the whole time who I am. And it was great that they acknowledged that they were wrong, but I just couldn't understand how they were so attached to that for so long.
Yeah, definitely. I was just thinking of an example that I've had of this. So a friend that I've got from uni, when I first met her at uni, I thought, I don't know, again, what sense data I was using to come to this conclusion, but I was like, she's a snob. She's a straight up snob. Oh, wow. And turns out she wasn't. Once I got to know her, she was actually quite nice. But that was like the label I put straight away before I actually had a conversation with her. Again, that was a time that I was wrong. I mean, I probably wasn't totally wrong. I still like her, but like, you know, I was a little bit wrong. But I think I do this all the time. And I also do it... Do I do it too abruptly? Possibly. Yes. I think to give an example without going deep into it, because it might implicate someone that we know.
Okay. She's doing unpacking hands right now.
don't want to implicate anyone, but within a certain friendship group, there was a person that we decided we weren't sure about including, and I from the get-go was like, everyone, she doesn't want to be our friend. Guys, stop. I don't know why you're trying to flog a dead horse here. I think from the beginning, you guys were all so lovely and like trying to be her friend and trying to be nice. I was like, you guys are idiots. And I knew that she wasn't going to be hanging around. I knew whatever she was doing was a very temporary thing. I just knew.
Yeah, that does sound like a situation of the thing that I'm talking about, of you just intuitively knowing things that other people don't. So you are very interested in self-development and growth, correct?
I am, yeah.
Yeah. So as an INFJ, what have been the most important things for you to keep in mind with your knowing your cognitive functions and what you use to get a good balance on your perceptions of the world, judgments of the world, and your blind spots?
Yeah. I actually enjoy a bit of journaling. So I do that probably daily, just to write down things, I think feelings in the moment. I don't know how that actually helps me as an INFJ. Yeah, I'm actually not sure how that would help. Tell me, because I feel like I don't even know myself.
Well, I feel like you would probably need... It's very interesting because I immediately think of another question. This is something that I don't... I just long to understand as an FI user. Because I know who I am.
Yeah.
Because of me and not really other people. Like, they've had an effect on that. But they have had an effect... People have had an effect on who I am. But my sense of identity is something so personal and detached from anyone else. But I imagine as an FE user... that would be slightly different. How did you even find your identity? Did you need others to work out who you were?
Yeah, I think I've always had trouble. I think because that want of always continually wanting to go deep and figure out who I am. I don't think I'll ever be settled on a particular, yes, this is who I am. Maybe not until I die. I don't know. I just don't think that I ever will have a 100% sense of who I am. And I don't know if that is because... the why, constantly, questioning, why do I do this? Why do I act like that?
Do you know who you are?
God, like, it's, what I said to you, you're like, I don't understand INFJs, and I'm like, I don't understand myself. I just don't, not that I don't think I'm totally misunderstood, but I think that maybe I'm a bit of like, those characters that sit by the window and it's raining and they're like looking out, pondering life. I feel like that constantly. Like, I feel like I've constantly got something to think about or ponder about, like, about who I am as a person.
Watch my representation of INFJs change to just all of them sitting in the window looking out with rain. Then the INFJs will get mad and I'll be like, see this podcast, I have proof.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to speak for every INFJ. People might listen to this and be like, that's not an INFJ. And sometimes I think that too.
Yeah.
Like, am I really an INFJ?
Yeah. No, well, that's classic. But also, I mean, like, I've said before, I have a lot of comments from INFJs particularly saying this is not what we're like, more than any other type. And I'm like, well, this is probably because you just see nuance. You see the why, you see the nuance behind every situation just naturally. And to summarize an entire personality as they see it to like just one moment or one line in one of my skits would be annoying because I'm missing so much nuance in just a line of a skit.
Yeah, I mean, the teacher one is
You're
good
holding
example.
onto it. I can see in your eyes.
I'll
see
never
in your
forget.
eyes. Yeah. Oh, goodness. Yeah, but journaling can confirm something that's very helpful. What about in terms of, I guess, maybe I don't want to say vices, but like weaknesses that come with maybe FE? So things like people pleasing.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about this. So I can confirm that I know that I tend to people please, but then I was thinking about why I've got, I mean, not that everyone knows who I am, but Kristen knows. I have another part of my personality where it's like I can be very harsh and abrupt, and I can be, I mean, not overly abrupt, but I can, I don't use the fight either. Like, I'm not aggressive, but I can fight if I need to. And I was wondering why that is with some people. I feel like I don't need to people please. And I think it must be because I've made a judgment about a particular person. And if I made a judgment like, I don't like you, or that's a really bad thing to say, you're not a good person, or XYZ, I don't feel like I have to people please those particular people.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's like with Effie, it's like we are all parts of the puzzle and the whole puzzle is a society made up of individuals who need to be a community and work together to make the world a better place, right? So if one person is disrupting that community, then I guess in your mind, it'd be completely fine to
shut them out.
Yeah. Or be really blunt to them. You're hurting the community right now.
Yeah.
That makes complete sense. Yeah, because that's really hard. I'm very conflict averse. I don't really stand up to anyone unless I'm super, super comfortable. And even then, it's just more of a TE tone than actually getting like mad at them. Because I'm just like, well, I'm living in my little world. You're living in your little world. I don't want to disrupt your little world. I don't understand what you're going through. Like, you do you, I do me, we're fine. Whereas I feel with the FE DOMs or auxiliary users that I know in my life, it's very much like, no, this is what's right and what's just.
Yeah. Definitely. I think I do that a fair bit. So if I know someone, I mean, maybe in work context, there was this person who ended up getting the manager job above me. And because I read into so much stuff and clearly pick up on things that others don't, I knew that when she was working, still under me, she wasn't doing anything. Like, I knew this. Like, I was well aware she wasn't doing her job. And it used to frustrate me to no end. And then she'd lie about stuff she did. And then I knew that she was lying because it'd be stuff that I was in charge of. Anyway, she got the manager job. And I said to them, I expressed to them, I don't think you're making the right choice because she does XYZ. They're like, no, she's great. Guess she's now gone and fired.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. And it's because they can't see that. And when I was like, well, why can't you see that? It's so obvious to me.
Wow.
But it's not obvious to everyone else.
And just to clarify, it's a intuition that tells you that.
Yeah. Well, there's some pretty obvious sense data. Also, because she wasn't doing the work.
Yeah.
But also her as a person, I just knew there was just something not right. I think it was continually stuff that I was picking up on.
Wow.
Yeah. And, and it turns out, I mean, I won't disclose why she was fired, but it's a pretty bad thing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's pretty bad.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So would you say that you understand others well?
I feel like I understand other people better than I understand myself.
Yeah, I was going to say, what I was going to follow with.
Which
is
sounds
but you
so
don't
ridiculous.
Yourself. Yeah.
It sounds really dumb to say that, but I think that I can pick up on people very quickly. And then understanding myself is weird because I think, not to quote Shrek, but I feel like I've got layers.
That's not an exclusively Shrek quote, right? Sorry, Amy, if you're listening.
Onions have layers. I feel like there's lots of layers that I continue to peel back. And I think the more I've done therapy, actually, is the more I'm understanding the layers. And also, every time you go through a new part in your life, I feel like you're uncovering more of who you are.
Oh,
Getting
absolutely.
very deep. But I feel like I'm still uncovering who I am as a mother. Like, I don't know myself as a mother quite yet.
Yeah, no, of course. You'll probably be learning that for years.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. It's interesting because I did a survey recently asking the types. Oh, I did an INFJ specific poll where I was like, how can your loved ones help you to feel loved? And the most common answer was, sit down and listen to me talk about my deep feelings for the sake of understanding me.
Yeah.
Not just listening to listen, to tick a box, but to understand. Like, they just want to be understood was the vibe I got.
Yeah.
And I wonder if they place so much emphasis on being understood because they don't understand themselves.
I mean, I don't want to speak for everyone, but yeah, possibly.
Yeah, we're being general right now.
We're being very general. Yeah. I think possibly, yeah. And I think that is actually what made being a teenager so hard, because I think those are the years that you are trying to figure out who you are. And I think as an INFJ, as a teenager, it was just messed up. Like, you can't, I think it was really hard for me to figure out who I was for so many years. And probably only maybe in the last 3 years, I feel like I've started
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm obviously way out of my teenage
Wow.
years. Yeah.
That's amazing. And in terms of lol, just to go back to the question that we didn't finish answering, in terms of our friendship,
Yeah.
I've always felt like very loved and understood by you, and you've literally always been sweet. I don't think we've ever we've never had a fight. You've just been, it's just a blessing. Is that because you have always sensed that I have like good intentions, or like what is it? Because I feel like,
What's it about?
I feel like with like the fact that we've had such a great friendship.
Yeah.
Because I feel like with INFJs, just from what you're saying, and this is me as much trying to ask you, but also me trying to understand INFJs. I feel like they can be the type of people, I guess, generally speaking, where like once you've hurt them, that's it.
Yes.
Like your trust is
doesn't
lost.
Frey James talk about the INFJ doorslam?
Oh,
thing?
yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
I've done my research.
Oh yeah, there we go. So, but you've always just been by my side, even though I felt like because you've seen me since I was 12, like you've seen my worst sides, I think, but still you've kind of stuck around.
Yeah, I must like you then.
That must be the reason.
He asked, is the question
Just
why?
like, why? Like,
why do
why?
I like you?
Like me, but also like
why have I stuck around?
yeah, but also like, what do you? Yeah, like maybe us specifically first.
I think specifically for us, I don't think you've ever given me a reason not to doubt you. Whereas I think there have been other people in my life that have planted a seed of doubt. I think you're just very authentic, and I've never had to question our relationship. I've never had to question ulterior motives, because maybe as a ESFP, I remembered. Like you said, you see everything for surface level, and nothing is like under the surface. Like it's kind of like who you are is who you are, and like what you're thinking is on the surface. And I haven't had to worry. Maybe that is. I haven't had to worry and wonder why so much. With you.
Yeah. That's great. And when you say that, I feel very understood, because I feel like I've only ever been authentic in our in our friendship, but also a lot of my friendships. And sometimes I can feel misunderstood for that when people think I have subtext and I really don't.
Yeah. Maybe that's it. I'm like, maybe I worked out, not that you have no depth. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that you don't have depth.
Maybe I worked out that you were an airhead.
There's no like, there's nothing else that I have to dig deeper on.
Yeah. Because if I am the kind of person where if something's bothering me, I'll bring it to the surface.
Yeah.
If I'm going through something, I'll bring it to the surface.
Yeah, whereas I will never do that, as you know.
Yes.
Yes.
The amount of times I found out years later that
I
you went
was
through
like,
something.
This XYZ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Classic. What about in general? Like, what do you value in friendships? What do you search for in people?
I think what I value in friendships is, I think honesty is a very big one for me, because I don't like lies, but also I think I pick up on lies pretty easy. There needs to be humour, and I think there also needs to be the ability to go deep with people, which probably doesn't make any sense if you know who my husband is, because not that he's not deep, but he's just not deep. Yeah. I think so. Just sounds bad. Okay. I get those kind of deep conversations with my friends, and I think for a romantic partner, I think I would get exhausted if I had someone who was always constantly, if I had another person just like me, very deep in their head constantly, I think I would actually hate it.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. And it's very interesting because your husband is an ISTP, and his second function is extroverted sensing, or SE, which is your inferior function. And one of the theories of Myers-Briggs is that your fourth function is your aspirational function. So it's the thing that you want to be better at. It's the thing that you long, like you
I
said,
didn't know that.
Well, you said earlier that you're often in your head. So
Yeah.
the theory is that bottom SE users really want to be drawn out of their head to just exist without overthinking for a little bit and just exist in the present moment. And so for your husband, the fact that you're drawn to that, and then you can come home to a space where you know you're not being overanalyzed, you know what you see is what you get, and you can just relax and be present. That is why you're drawn to him. Does that?
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense. Yeah, I don't have to worry about going deeper into the why. Yeah, that does make sense, actually.
Yeah, and it's so fascinating because my boyfriend is an ENTJ, And I always thought, in the abstract, that I should be with someone who's equally as emotional as I, because I want to be understood or whatever. But I know I have the ability to absolutely dwell in my emotions. Like I can spend 48 hours just indulgently dwelling in stewing in my emotions, and it can be really unhealthy. And what I found in my current relationship is that when I have an emotion, I've had to go through some communication to like flag with my boyfriend, when I'm feeling an emotion, it'd be great if we could sit down and talk and you could validate it. And I've had to
Can you imagine if I had to ask my ISTP husband
Shame. Bless him. No. Well, it's obviously worked well, and I'd love to get back into that in just a second. But I've just been really interested. I've been fascinated at how much I've enjoyed not being with someone who is a T, because it's like I have the tendency to just over dwell in my emotions, and he like comes to me, listens to them, validates me, validates the emotion, picks me up, and then says, all right, now let's go do something, or let's get out. And then I'm like, sweet, now I'm encouraged to get out of this emotion instead of stewing in it.
Yeah.
And he like really elevates me in my emotionality and like gives space for that. And he receives that, and he acknowledges that I'm really emotionally mature and everything. So he validates it. But then he also doesn't, I just love that there's that balance,
Yeah.
It's like, oh, nice. I can forget my emotions for a little bit,
Yeah.
So I wonder if that plays a role in compatibility somehow.
Yeah. Having like, is it kind of opposites?
Well, yeah, it could be opposites could look very different. Like for me as a super emotional person, this particularly works for me. Maybe for you as someone who overthinks and you're in your head, like enjoy the fact that your husband can bring you into the present moment.
Yeah. I mean, there's things I love about it, and obviously things I don't. But yeah, I think it is good. Like you said, I overthink. A prime example of that is anything to do with our daughter. I'm like, she'll get a temperature. I'm like, oh my God, is she sick? Do you think I should give her a Panadol? And he's like, no, let's just see how she goes. And I'm like, but if we don't give it to her now, what if she gets worse? Whereas he just doesn't,
He's just like, yeah, she'll be right. Like her immune system will get boosted.
He's just very, like you said, live in the moment, and it is good because it makes me probably freak out a little less. But sometimes it is hard to understand like how to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. What communication strategies do you have for anyone who might be in an ISTP INFJ relationship? Because it seems to have worked really well. You've been together for how many years?
10 years.
10 years.
Yeah, it's a long time.
Amazing.
So communication, I mean, it's hard. It's hard. I'm like, what do we do? To be honest, I find it very hard to figure out how we actually work as a couple sometimes. Because I probably go, why? Like, what do we do? I think our communication obviously wasn't always good. And I realize now that's because we're so opposite. So when I would want to get really deep in an argument, he will retract away because this is just not his nature. He doesn't like to argue. Whereas I'm like, I want to argue and get to the bottom of something. And I realize now that it's just never going to happen. Like, I want to argue and try to get a resolution, whereas he needs to take time. And obviously, because one of his top functioning is
TI, introverted thinking.
Yeah, he needs to think. He needs to go off and be by himself, which I think is also like that's the third functioning for INFJ, right?
Yeah, you literally have the same functions, just in a different order.
Yeah. So even though I have that functioning, I still want to hash something out with him because I don't like leaving something unresolved. Whereas he needs to have the time and that
to brood.
Yeah, and I just never had. That's just never been something that I've wanted to do, but we've had to work that out. That's a big thing. And now it's kind of like, okay, I get that now. I think for him, if I get very emotional, he is quite good at like being there for me physically, like cuddling and stuff like that. But if I was to talk about my emotions, he'd be like, yeah, okay. Like it's just not in his wheelhouse to talk through that stuff. And then I realized that, I I actually don't know if I need someone to do that for me, because I think I do that by myself pretty well.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I feel like you're so good. Maybe one of the best people I know at like independent emotional regulation
Yeah.
from what I've seen of you.
Yeah, I think I mean, probably hasn't always been that way, but I think I'm pretty good at sitting with my thoughts and processing them. And I don't know if that's an INFJ thing or if that's a me thing.
I think it's probably great that you're both introverts.
Yes.
You've got your own little worlds going on that you operate within.
Absolutely. I mean, I think often in our friendship group, obviously, everyone's like, I think everyone's partners are more extroverted, apart from like one. And I just don't ever feel like I need to. This is really interesting because I know another friend of ours is kind of going through that new relationship of like wanting to take her partner everywhere, and he's also introverted. But I think for me and then our other friend who also has an introverted husband, I never felt the need to drag Gus along to things because I don't know, like I get it. I'm like, God, I get exhausted at these things, and I sometimes can't see the value of being social when the chatter is so like surface level. So yeah, I've never had the like felt the need like I've needed to drag him along. And maybe it's because I'm introverted and also understand that as well. Or if it's, I'm not sure what that is.
Yeah, I love that. That just, because, again, this is the compatibility thing. A lot of people would say, oh, you know, T's being with F's can be really hard. But it ultimately just comes to understanding. And you have such a good understanding of who Gus is as a person and what he needs. And he seems to absolutely be the same view in that he gives you space. He gives you what he is able to his capacity to give you in terms of your needs. Because it was interesting, the other poll that I did was ISTPs, what makes you feel loved by your loved ones.
Yeah.
And the number one answer was just leave us to our own devices.
Yeah.
Just like leave us alone, basically.
Yeah.
Let us do our thing.
Yeah, when he came in the other day, that's exactly what he said to you.
Yes.
Classic.
He came in the other day and Rebecca was like, what makes you feel loved? And he's like, something like leave me alone.
Yeah, just leave me alone.
Just leave me alone. I was like, that's just so true.
Textbook answer.
Yeah, but you guys have, 10 years on and you've started a family now and it seems to be working, and it seems like one of the key instruments was, you understanding each other's, I guess, love languages for lack of a better term. So we have some questions from my subscribers. They've asked a few questions to you on the YouTube channel for the podcast. The first one is from Ben. He asks, I've always seen INFJs as a type who contradicts itself. On one hand, your high FE makes you more in tune with the group and you try to fit in more. But on the other hand, you are introverts, so naturally you would want to stand out and be your own individual. How do you deal with that contradiction?
I don't know if introverts try to stand out. Sorry, Ben, not to dismiss you. I think that goes against everything they would want to do.
Be your own individual.
Oh, being like an individual. Well, yeah, I think that's... Sorry, I think I missed...
Yeah, the in tune with the group and trying to fit in whilst at the same time being an individual.
It is hard because I think there is two different parts, because I think in a way I do like being part of a group, but then I also, I don't want to be confined by other people and the way they kind of do things, if that makes sense. I think, what was the question? How do you deal with that? This person sees it as a contradiction. Maybe you don't see it as a contradiction. Having your own individuality, but also... How do I deal with it, that contradiction? I don't know if I deal with it, Ben. No, I think that there are different... I think it depends on your circumstance. I think for me, for group settings, I like having both. And I think that comes back to that ambivert thing, right? Of being like an extroverted introvert. I like having the ability to be able to be in social settings without being like super awkward. I still think I'm slightly awkward in social settings, but probably not the most awkward. So I like being able to kind of fit in with that. But I also like that I am able to be by myself and, take pleasure in being who I am by myself, doing things individually. Like I I do like social outings. It depends on what kind of outing it is. It depends on how much notice I've been given. It depends on a lot of things. But I like them. But I would say that my energy levels dip pretty quickly, and then I need to be home. Like, I need to find time. I like having time to myself quite a fair bit. And I don't know if that's all INFJs, if that's just me.
I remember you saying once that, like, to stay out at a party, you need to be having some kind of D&M with someone.
Yeah.
And that there have been multiple times where you go to a party and you see it's just surface level stuff, and you get drained so fast and you're like, I'm out of here.
100%. I could, if I was at a party with someone that I could get really deep on, like, a particular topic, I could probably stay there all night with that person talking. But if it's just surface level, like, oh, how's your dog? Oh, how's work? Oh, that's so great. What is marketing? Not that I'm in marketing, but, like, you know, if I have to engage in that kind of conversation, literally kill me. Like, I'd rather go home and sit at home and, like, think about my life choices. I don't know. Not kill me, that's extreme. But, like, I just...
What about all night on a dance floor with loud music?
I can do that.
Okay,
Yeah.
all night.
I need breaks. I need breaks.
You and I have rocked a dance floor.
Yeah.
Our high school girl group has
I mean, I
definitely
need
rocked.
breaks where I'd probably go out and, like, get into a deep conversation and then come back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We and then bust out a just cracking rendition of Bet on It.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I loved my wedding, I'm not gonna lie. I loved it, but I cannot stand talking to that many people about surface level stuff. And because at weddings, and when you're like the bride or groom, you can't get deep on anything because you've got so many people to talk to. So that was both a great day but also a draining day because it's just like, hi, oh my god, you look so beautiful, thanks. So it's just like, it's the same conversation. I think that's what I can't have the same conversation all the time with people. Yeah.
Do you relate to Frank James's videos?
I was saying this before. I think that I haven't watched enough of his other stuff. Like, I've watched a lot of the INFJ ones, and definitely I relate when he says, I think he went through like the 10 signs or 10 something about an INFJ, and I was like, yep, I definitely get that. And I think sometimes what makes me an INFJ is that I'm still like, why am I an INFJ? What makes me the way I am? And maybe the interest in wanting to know more about that is what makes me an INFJ, right?
Yeah, well, I think that's why we have a lot of NI DOMs in the community. We have a lot of INTJs, INFJs, INFPs and INTPs. But yeah, I do think that we have a lot of INFJs because they really want to deep dive into the why, you know, the abstract why behind things. So they want to know everything. Like I have a friend who heard about Myers-Briggs, was fascinated by it, and then the next time I saw him, which had been like a week later, he'd already researched literally everything there was to research. He's like, I did the giant dive into it.
What is he?
INFJ.
Classic. I would if I had the time.
Yeah.
And I have actually, like, I've got different Instagram accounts that I follow and TikToks that I follow based on, like... Yeah.
It's super helpful.
It is, yeah.
On that, how have you found Myers-Briggs to be helpful?
I think I found it helpful, like you said, to understand what makes me the way I am, particularly around, I guess, like that judgment of people. Sometimes I wondered if it was just because I was a mean person that I would be quick to judge. But now it makes sense. It's just that ability to pick up on sense data and make a judgment based on that. And I also wondered often why I'm such an overthinker. And it makes sense because I want to know the why of everything. And the people-pleasing one is a big one. I often thought maybe it was like related to trauma, which will be in another episode.
We've decided we've been talking too long to cover the trauma this episode, but we'll get to it in another episode.
Yeah, I often thought the people-pleasing was part of that, but maybe it's part of, that FE.
This one's from Morgan. What types are the most common mistypes for INFJs, and what in your opinion? What is your opinion on why they're mistyping themselves?
I don't know if I'm the one to answer that. But I will say that I think more people probably think they are INFJs than they actually are, because it's probably
Well, the test skews towards it.
Yes.
Yeah. And F results in general.
And like, who wouldn't want to be? Because, you know, we're pretty amazing.
What quote/song/fictional characters are perfect examples of INFJs?
Oh, we looked up a list
We did.
the other day.
Do any stand out to you?
I think Jon Snow is one that stands out.
Sure.
And I think that makes sense, right? Because he's very for the people, right? He's very, right?
Yeah.
Would you say he's...
I watched Game of Thrones a long time ago.
Yeah.
So I'm not really super au fait with his personality. But that checks out.
It checks out,
I feel
yeah.
like we found some other good ones.
Not that you know this, but Michael Scofield from Prison Break.
Oh,
I think that checks out.
Yeah.
He's a pretty smart guy.
Yeah.
Not that, like, to say we're all, like, super smart.
Yeah. I think Zelda from The Legend of Zelda.
I don't know that, but yes. Yes. Who else? I said Mother Teresa, but you said she wasn't.
I don't think she was. Yeah.
That's upsetting. Lisa Simpson.
Oh, yeah.
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 But what
sense.
makes her an INFJ?
I don't know because I never watched The Simpsons, but she's like commonly known to be an INFJ.
Ah, uncultured.
I was forbidden, okay?
That's so weird. Okay, Lisa Simpson. What's her face from Pride and Prejudice? Jane.
Jane. Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Not Jane. Lizzie.
Why did I say Jane? That's
Because
who wrote
Jane
it.
Austen. Yeah.
That's who wrote it.
Oh, Jane. No, Lizzie.
Jane. Yeah,
Makes
Lizzie.
sense. How do INFJs perceive art? How they express their artistic creativity, and what, most of the times, is a mechanism behind their artistic process?
That's a really long question.
Let me ask this one. How do INFJs perceive art?
I love art. I mean, do you mean like art as in like painting on a wall art, or like maybe in general?
Any kind of artistic expression. Any time of...
I think INFJs, I mean, I don't want to stereotype, but I think of myself as a pretty creative person. So I think we must place a lot of value in being artistic.
How do you express your artistic creativity?
Me personally, I am a writer. I like to write a lot, and I think that is probably, again, part of me going deep. So I really like getting to characters and how they, what makes them tick. And that is probably an INFJ thing of like, what's the why behind it all? Because there's always, not like the podcast name, but there's always subtext, right?
Yeah.
In books. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Absolutely. What is dangerous for INFJs? What thoughts, habits, and states of mind can show that something is going the wrong path for an INFJ?
Well, as a healthy INFJ, no, I'm sure I can, yeah. What is unhealthy? I think the unhealthy thing is that fake world that we can build. I could build a whole city, country, world, I think that is fake, and I could just live there in my brain for a long time.
Wow.
Yeah, I could make a whole storyline of what my life could have been like. I often think like that. I think, if I took this path, or if I went with this other person, this other boyfriend, or if I did this instead, what my life would be like. And I could imagine that whole life.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's like pretty toxic. Like, you don't need to be thinking about what your life is like if you'd done something differently.
Yeah,
but I can definitely craft I could make like a feature film of all the different lives I could have lived.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's actually that's really good nuance. That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's good advice for INFJs to make sure they keep in.
Yeah.
On top
You
of that.
You don't need to go into depth about what could have been, because the reality is it's gone and you can't go back and live that life.
It's so interesting because as a Dom SE, I'm literally like, that's the least relatable thing to me. Everything is like, it's already happened, it's finished, it's done, it's gone.
No.
I can't, for me to imagine what my life would have been like if I'd made this choice or hadn't made this choice, it's almost impossible for me. I can see 2-3 weeks maybe ahead, and that's about it.
That's wild. I can often live in my memories a fair bit too. Like, I could relive memories pretty often.
Goodness me.
Yeah, it's wild. Which again, not helpful, because you don't need to be stuck in the past. But yeah, I can relive memories pretty easily.
No, that's amazing. Wow. There you go. Good nuance. So yeah, INFJs, don't let that dark side come out where you're living in these realities.
Yeah.
INFJs are known to be social chameleons. Is it true for you? Are you a social chameleon? If so, it might be hard to recognize your own feelings and thoughts when in a group. Is it harder for you to recognize that you feel differently than the group around you, or that you think differently?
Yeah. I think, yes, I am a social chameleon. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
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 Everyone likes you. You get along very easily with
Thanks,
anyone.
everyone likes me. Confidence boost. I do get easily affected by other people. It also it actually would depend on who the person is. If I have no connection to that person, probably less so. So if it's someone that I've decided to slam my metaphorical door on, then I wouldn't care. But if it was like you or like a good friend or a spouse, like I would get easily affected by their mood or their feelings. Yeah. I don't think it sways the way I think, though. I think I have pretty... Yeah, I don't know if it sways. I don't think I play into someone else's thoughts like that. I think my thoughts are very much my own. Is that part of the question?
Yeah, that would be TI versus FE, what you've
Yeah.
just described. Your thoughts are very much your own, but
Yeah.
your feelings depend on others around you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly it. I
Very
think.
fascinating. I mean, thoughts aren't necessarily always logical. They can be emotional thoughts, but anyway, the essence is there. Benjamin, another Ben. This is
Classic.
Benjamin asked, how does it feel to be the second best NI Dom?
Second best.
Let's
unpack that.
You beat me.
Who's the first?
Yeah, he is.
Who's that?
Benjamin is.
Yeah, but
That's
like,
what he's saying.
Who's
You're like, who is he?
Who's the
Who are
type?
you?
Who are you? Why?
Yeah, I'm sure he's.
What's
I'm sure
the
he's
type?
an INFJ or INTJ.
What is it like to be the second best? It's pretty amazing. I will say that. I think being up there is both amazing and terrible at the same time.
This was a joke question. I hope you're aware.
I'm really getting to get into it. Oh, thanks, Benjamin. Wow,
goodness.
that was a real INFJ coming out.
Yeah. He said, real question, how does your NIFE work for you? I think we've already talked about that. This one's from John. What do you feel and think most deeply about?
Oh, Johnny boy. What do I... It's like asking why is the sky blue?
Well,
Actually, no, it's not.
it's
That's
not, 'cause there's
one
one
answer.
answer. There's just
That's
one
like
answer.
asking... I don't know. I can't think of an analogy there.
It's like
What do I think most deeply? This hurts my brain.
it's like asking how many grains of sand are there on the beach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do I think most deeply about? I think I can think deeply about a piece of chewing gum. Let's be like...
Oh my
Actually, I can
word.
think about anything deeply.
Wow.
That's probably extreme. That's extreme. I don't even know if I can answer that.
Yeah, it's too big a question, I think.
I'm probably going to think about Johnny Boy very deeply now. That's why. Like, why are you asking that,
Johnny Boy has
You are.
also asked,
Yeah.
how would you describe your heart?
I would love to know John's stuff. How would I describe my heart? Like physically or
Not physically.
theoretically?
We all know what a heart looks like.
Yeah, but like my heart. This sent me into a spin.
Lol.
Sorry.
As an FI user, I would know how to answer this immediately.
Why am I so caught up about figuring it out then?
Because it's like, the question is literally, how do you describe the vessel that is responsible for your emotions? And it's like, how do you explain your emotion, your personal emotions, and like your emotional core, your emotional identity?
I find that so hard because my mind is just like going so many different directions. My heart, I think that it has been broken and shattered many times.
Sorry,
Not
I
to
didn't
get
mean to
deep. Laughing.
I'm sorry, I didn't
Getting
mean to laugh.
deep. Broken and shattered many times, and I would say that it has been repieced together. Like you said, resilience, perseverance. I think that really describes who I am to my core.
Mm.
Yeah.
I think it's a good answer.
Thank you. That was really hard. I'm going to probably think about that all night now.
Yeah, you'll be like,
Yeah.
can you bring the microphone back and we'll say it again? What helps you keep a positive outlook and remain strong? This is also Johnny Boy.
Johnny Boy is hitting me with the hard stuff. Positive outlook. I do a lot of self-care. I think it's very important. I do, well, not at the moment because I haven't been able to do it with my child, but usually do lots of yoga. I don't know if that's... I think that's actually, to circle back to one of the questions you asked earlier about how I get out of my head. That is actually one way I get out of my head, because it does really require you to have a body, like a focus on the present and the body focus. Mm-hmm. So I do lots of yoga. I do lots of reading. It's a lot of individual stuff, but I also just like spending time with my family. Small amounts of time with my extended family, but with my husband and my daughter, having those moments is quite nice. Yeah.
Love that. We're definitely not going to get into the essence of this at the moment, but I'm just laughing that this is one of the questions. INFJ, do you think that the body keeps the score is worth reading?
Stop it! Stop, that is not one of the questions.
It is one of the questions, 100%.
Someone's been stalking me.
No, it's just because I put in one of my videos an INFJ reading that book. So they're asking, is it actually worth reading? And the funny story is Rebecca was the one who introduced me to that book.
It's a full circle moment.
100% full circle. 100%.
That is definitely, I mean, I could go into a lot of depth.
Yeah.
The short story is yes, but also be aware that it is quite heavy on details around the brain. Like, you really need to want to know about that stuff.
You really do need to want to.
Yeah, it's I think it is a niche thing. You need to want to understand how your brain functions the way it does.
It's like terminology central and just...
Yeah, I mean, fundamentally it's for psychologists.
Yeah.
That's what it's for. It's for their education. But if you're an INFJ and you want to know the why, perfect.
Yeah, 100%.
Perfect of if you want to know why your brain functions the way it does after trauma, amazing. You'll love it.
100%. And I haven't even got through the whole thing. It's just that dense. And I have to keep going back to pages to understand things that I've forgotten about. Like, when I read, I'm like, that's a gold nugget. And then I forget and I have to go back. It's so much. It is worth reading if that interests you, but you have to really want to, for sure. What's the one thing that convinces you you're an INFJ? I bounce between all the IJ types. I'd love to know what makes them certain. It's the why.
It is probably the why. And I will still say that I'm still never certain. I still often ask Kristen, most times that I see her, if I'm actually are you sure? It is the why. It's wanting to get to know things. I think the more I know more about INFJs and that ability, the NI, is probably the biggest one for me. I think is how I know that I am. Just the ability to pick up on things that others don't.
Does engaging with your inferior SE help when you're feeling down? We talked about this earlier.
And you said something about going for a walk.
Yeah, like, for example, going for a walk.
No, I hate walking.
Yeah, you were like, I couldn't just spontaneously go for a walk. It would need to be planned.
No, I want to plan. I'm not just going to go out my door. Like, what if it starts raining? Like, what if it's too hot? Like, no.
But say it is planned. Does that help to, get out of your head?
No. I think that's more of a personal preference of what I like to do. So I would probably do yoga over going for a walk to get out of my head.
Okay, so the answer is that yes, you do like to engage your inferior SE when you're feeling down.
Again, that is not... I don't think that's me engaging in, because I would book the yoga class for the time. I don't know if that's...
No, but SE is not just spontaneous
it's
engagement. It's getting out of the head and being only engaged in the body and
I think
in the moment way.
Yeah, I mean, I also do lots of exercise, so yeah, I think so. But it would depend on the type of activity. Like I said, not a fan of walking. I don't like doing things aimless. It's told you the train. It has a mind of its own.
It's a train in the background.
I forgot what I was going to say, but yeah. I don't like walking. I don't feel like walking is it feels like no achievement when I walk. I don't like just walking nowhere.
Yeah. You like to have an outcome.
Yeah.
This is Maria. What is your dearest NI dream and the SE obstacle that doesn't let it become accomplished?
Maria. Definitely wanting to be a proper writer and having my book published. It was part of the question why it's not fulfilled.
What did you ask? Do you want me to read the question again? What is your dearest NI dream and the SE obstacle that doesn't let it become accomplished?
The SE obstacle that doesn't let it become accomplished is probably purely the fact that I overthink it, and then I think that the manuscript that I've made is not going to be good enough, so then I just won't put it out there. Yeah, I'm like not willing to just be like, oh, I'll just get it published. I'm just like, no, I've got to spend more time on it.
Yeah, I can always make it better.
Meanwhile, I've been writing this book for like 5+ years.
Yeah, you've probably just got to release it. Just do it.
Yeah,
Classic
I
SE.
know.
Just do it.
And I'm like, no, I gotta do this and this. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we'll do a couple more. Cosmic Lighting asks, what greater purpose does showing up to this interview have for you?
What greater purpose? I mean, I can tick it off my bucket list that I've done a podcast.
Yay!
The other greater purpose, I mean, we've already talked a lot at length about INFJs and functioning, so I don't know if it has a greater purpose because we've already done a lot of that. Yeah, I think that's maybe just getting
maybe supporting your friend.
Oh yeah, that too. That's always nice.
Yeah. Oh, it doesn't have a greater purpose? That's shocking. Okay, and then the last question I want to ask you is, you've obviously done a lot of self-development and growth. I don't know whether you can hear that in the background, but it's just this train just chewing. So you've obviously done a lot of self-development and growth. You are...
Why is it going off now?
It's okay, we don't need it. That's now going to be the background noise. You are one of the most resilient people I know. You've been through a lot, but one thing I admire about you is you've come through all of the hardships, and there have been a lot of hardships. I feel like even more soft and empathic and knowing who you are and kind and compassionate person. And so what would be your advice for people going through hardship to make sure that you're processing it well and coming out?
I'm trying to get really serious.
Yeah, I know. We're trying to get serious in the train. And yeah, for people going through hardship and like coming out of hardship, resilient rather than bitter.
It is a hard one. I would say therapy is your best friend, because I know a lot of people, I think less so now, but still around. I don't think a lot of people want to access therapy or that service because I don't know if there's a fear of like, if there's a shame behind it or an uncertainty, but that is probably your number one coming out of hardship. I've always found that it has worked for me the best. Yeah, so therapy is definitely my number one. I think the second one is actually, and this actually came from therapy as well. How dare you grab the job? This came from therapy as well. Actually doing stuff like meditation, journaling. When I mean, we won't get into it deeply, but when I went through depression, I did a lot of meditation and journaling and yoga and stuff. And I actually found as an INFJ that I needed to do that to get out of my head, because you can imagine being an INFJ and then having depression. It's a bleak landscape to stay in. Especially if that's where you spend a lot of your time.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of that, a lot of creating a mind-body connection, because I think that's actually really important. I don't think it's something that it will come naturally to everyone, but I actually think it's one of the best healing tools that I've had.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that you all learned something today about INFJs or the ESFP INFJ relationship, or the INFJ ISTP relationship, or maybe it was just nice to sit down and listen to two friends chat. So, Rebecca, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. Rebecca will be back, I'm sure, because we were going to talk about other things today that we classically didn't get to because NI.
Classic.
Classic. Anyway, thanks for listening, guys. Thanks to all those who submitted questions, and we will catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.